All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our monthly virtual accelerator call for We Shop SC. Today, I am joined with Jen Milnes, who is a friend, but also a very respected, professional business executive and leadership coach. I invited her to join the call today because she is somebody who I think just really embodies like a positive spirit and attitude and brings it to her work every day. Everything from her background in working for large brands and running inventory management, supply chain, managing people, to then deciding that she really loved the people aspect of her job and transitioned and made a big change in her life to becoming a business and executive leadership coach, and now gets to work with companies as well as individuals and kind of helping them manage that change as well. So today's topic is a little bit maybe sort of off course, but I think also very important and related to our journey as business owners and as individuals who support small businesses. um, how we kind of come to our work, our mental state, how we manage all the hats that we have to wear and balls we have to spin is like real. And it takes a lot of like personal work, I think, to be able to keep going every day and manage all of the aspects of our jobs that we have to. And so Jen today is going to talk to us a little bit about Mind Matters and how you can improve your capabilities and manage change, affect change in your life and in your business. And I think this is like probably one of the sessions where today's topic is really just going to be able to bleed into our professional situations, but also into our personal situations. So I'm very excited about that. And please feel free to, chime in, ask questions as we go. But I'm going to kick it over to Jen so she can introduce herself and take us through what she's prepared today.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Well, it's so nice to meet you, and I'm looking forward to the topic. Thank you, Kate, for inviting me to be here. The topic of well-being and our mindset is really important to me, and I can see it in all of my work with my clients. So I'm going to share my screen, and we can dive right in. So let me make sure. Can you guys see the screen? Yeah. Okay. Great. So before we dive in, and we're talking about well-being today, I would love to know from you, and as Kate mentioned, I would love for this to be as interactive as possible. And really, in my perspective, I want you to be able to take some of these topics that we're talking about and really make it applicable to your own life. And I know for either those that are listening live or those that might be listening to the recording, really think about how this applies to you so you can get the most out of it. So, what is one way that you're currently taking care of your well-being?
Exercise.
Okay, that's a good example.
Lots of water.
Mm-hmm. Water is so important.
I give myself permission to just rest my brain. Just nope, over. Time to pause.
Yeah. And Kate, what does resting your brain look like?
Taking a walk or just sitting down and enjoying a meal. It can be like a host of things, but it's just, okay, I've reached a like moment of not being as productive as I want to be, so I need to step away, whatever step away is, but just a moment of pause. Yoga.
Yeah. And as you were talking about each of those, it sounded like you're like very present. Like whether it's eating a meal or just sitting down, it's like letting go of some of those worries, right? Or even, I know one of you mentioned exercising, and it helps you really be in the moment and connect to your body. So those are all great examples, and we'll talk about some of those and more as we focus on well-being today. So thank you for sharing. So I'll share a little bit more of an introduction about myself. We'll talk about work-life balance, your well-being, managing stress. Then since we are at this mid-year point, do you want to, just acknowledge that and check in? and talk about making changes as you think about the back half. If there's any changes you want to make to your approach, whether from a business perspective or personally. And then I do have some resources I can share and happy to answer any questions. So let's dive right in. So my name is Jen Milnes. As Kate mentioned, I am currently a leadership coach and I have my own business. I've been an entrepreneur for the past 5 years. I'm a solopreneur. And before this second phase of my career, I did work in fashion retail. So mostly for very large companies. And I worked in inventory management and store operations and strategy. And some of the decisions I was making or areas I was leading was around product assortment and depth of inventory. So working for Gap, for example, picturing, do we want to add a body assortment to stores? Did it make sense? And then working with the store leaders on, do we have enough space to add the body fixtures and, the whole assortment of body, and would the customer like it? So I really enjoyed working with our field teams around the world, making those assortment decisions and then determining how much inventory to send to stores. One of my favorite examples was a tourist destination in San Francisco. Everyone goes to San Francisco thinking California is going to be hot, but it's actually quite windy and chilly near the wharf, Fisherman's Wharf. So everyone would come in buying sweatshirts and jackets. So being responsible for women's outerwear, I needed to make sure I sent them a lot of sweatshirts and jackets. So I really loved my time in retail, focused on not only the big picture of, how do we support the customers globally, but then also really single store decisions. How do I support that individual customer at that specific store? And I would say one of my big learnings in my corporate role was prioritization. And I thought I was prioritizing well when I was there, but in hindsight, thinking back, I just tried to do so many different things, and prioritizing is so important. And I think another reason that to me, well-being is so important to talk about is I really got burnt out, focusing so much on work. Really, I didn't have to create time to focus on some of the other things. So really, those were some of my key learnings. Can anyone relate to the prioritization and getting burnt out? Does that happen to anyone right now? Yeah. And then, so now I'm a coach. And so I do one-on-one coaching, I do group coaching, trainings, development, I focus on change management. And one of my big learnings transitioning from corporate life to being an entrepreneur was wearing all of the hats. So, I got into this thinking, great, I'm going to be a coach and coaching. This is wonderful. I love working with people. And then it was like, oh, I need to do all the financial aspects. I need to be my own IT department. I need to create marketing. And I think it was learning to wear all of those hats that took me a little bit of time. And sometimes I don't love each of those different areas, right? So it's like, I love coaching. That's my zone of genius, but I still need to be able to do those other things to run my business. So that's been a big learning for me as an entrepreneur. Are there any questions? I thought I heard some sounds. Maybe just my feedback. Okay, great. So that's a little bit about me. So let's dive in. So talking about work-life balance, I know this can feel really hard sometimes and feel unattainable. Like, what is work-life balance? And I know there's different phrases, work-life integration or work-life harmony. So really thinking about your work and the rest of your life, and how do you create a balance that feels right for you? And I would say in all of my work with clients and for myself, it really is an ongoing sort of flexible, fluid strategy to create that balance. And what might look like balance today might be very different than what your balance looked like a year ago, or what it might look like a year from now. So really thinking about your life right now and what you want it to look like. So these 3 questions and 3 areas I found are really helpful. So thinking about, first and foremost for your work, what's your why? Why did you start your business? Why is it so important to you? Because that can always bring us back to why we're doing the work that we're doing. So I'd love to hear from somebody. What's your why for starting your business?
I'll share. my way really stemmed from just frustration and like lack of like options that I felt like were going to lead to more successful outcomes for small businesses, and like a lack of technology tools and focus for like the small business sector. So I would say it kind of started with like frustration, like we need to do more. Well, we can't because we don't have this. So it's like, well, then we'll build this. And that was sort of my why. Yeah. Anybody else want to share?
And Kate, before someone shares, maybe Kate, it sounds like so solving a problem and
Mhm.
really that focus on small businesses. Is that what you say is sort of like your driving force? Your heart is there. It's like, okay, I want to solve this problem. And really, it's like small businesses are important to me.
Yes. And like the environment they occupy, like the downtown sort of, environments, right? That we all love to just visit and enjoy, and the communities we live in and sort of their role within it is another big driving force, and sort of preserving that, um, yeah, that sort of structure.
Yeah. And what I hear you doing is it's almost like peeling back those layers of the onion, right? Like when you got to the core of it, it sounds like that community, like small businesses and downtowns can represent the community and that connection of people coming together. So that sounds like an old, like a big, like just connected to your heart. Like, yes, I want to help these thriving downtowns and communities. Yeah. Does someone else have a why they want to share? You can think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can answer another question. So second, what else is important to you in your life? So we each of us have our big whys, like why we started our business, and just as Kate shared, like what really connects to her heart for why her work is so important. So thinking about what else is important in your life. So the example I shared in my corporate role, I loved my job and my work was so important to me, but I was focused on it such a high percentage of my time that I wasn't creating space for other things. So really thinking about what else is important to you and how can you create time in your calendar to prioritize those other things. I know time is our number one thing that, we want more of. And so thinking about how to make sure you're doing other activities. Can someone share something else that's important and how you like to spend your time outside of work?
I'll share. Family. We step away and go camping to get completely out of the house and away from the property, so nobody's connected to things that are obligations. And it's multiple days at a time, so that's healthy for us.
Yeah, that's a great example. It sounds like family and like kind of you're removing yourself, you said, like going somewhere else. Yeah, that sounds good. And sounds like carving out that time. I heard you say a couple of days. So it sounds like carving out that time to say, okay, this is important to me. I'm going to make this a priority and make it happen. So I think for each of us, thinking about what's important and carving out that time, even if you feel like you need to focus all your time on work, really creating that time to be able to do those other things that you love. And third, a key here is saying no to things that don't support number 1 and 2 that we just talked about. So I know in our culture we get, maybe there's lots of things we want to do, right? Even in our businesses, there may be lots of things we want to do or we could do. But really thinking about what you want to say yes to and what you want to say no to. So it may be hard. I know a lot of us may have FOMO, that fear of missing out on things. But if you say no to certain things, you can say yes to other things that are connected to your business and your why, or that are connected to those things that are really important in life. So if you're able to get crystal clear on what's important to you, both in work and your personal life, really carving out your time to be able to focus on those. Does this feel hard for people right now?
To say no.
In general, just creating the work-life balance.
I think it's always, it's never something I think you fully achieve. Like I always think it's something that's kind of always like it's a scale, right? You're always trying to just like balance the scale, and sometimes it gets heavier on one, and so you have to rebalance constantly. It's sort of visually how I always picture work-life balance.
Yeah. It is that ongoing determination, right? To say, okay,
Yeah.
like, and I think awareness to notice, right? Like, okay,
Mhm.
when am I maybe leaning too heavy into one area? If you have been, maybe it was a really big work launch, a launch at work or some new product or offering or something that you're leaning so heavily into it. Say, okay, whew, that was a lot, and that brought enjoyment and, accomplishments, but how do I balance that out? What you're saying, Kate, like, making sure you are sort of in a zoomed out view, filling your life with the things that make you feel good and not myopically focused just on one thing. Okay.
Jen, we've also done that here with work. So I'm staff associate with Main Street, South Carolina, and so we did like a work plan for our organization for Main Street, South Carolina. And so we have started saying no and prioritizing our time work so that it's not taking over our family time, lifetime on the weekends and after hours, and realizing that there's some things that people come to us and want us to do that don't fit into what our mission is for Main Street, South Carolina, and being able to say no, we can't go do that because that's not that, because we could easily be pulled in 100 different directions trying to say yes to everybody. So we started saying no and realizing that we got to look and see what our core mission is for Main Street, South Carolina too. So
Yeah. Congratulations. That sounds like it was helpful.
it's challenging
Yeah.
because we want to
That's
say yes to everybody, but
That's a good word to use too. It's challenging,
yeah,
right? Like it's
yeah.
hard. Like you said, you want to say yes to everybody. And I
Mm-hmm.
know, a lot of us maybe with our own businesses, we do want to, take care of others or that customer service aspect and say yes. But it is, just what you said, like back to your mission. Like what's my mission? What's the reason I'm here? What purpose am I serving? And does it fit in with that? And the other thing about saying no, I found is sometimes it's a not right now, right? Maybe it's no for now, but this, let's say someone comes and let's do a partnership or let's do this event or whatever the request is. It might be like, okay, that's not going to fit in with my priorities for 2024, maybe 2025. So, but it is, right? And all of that requires each of us to be so clear on what's important to us now. So thank you for sharing. That's a great example. Okay. So if we keep talking about well-being, I like to call this my pyramid of well-being. And I've created it based on lots of different research I've read about our well-being and studies, as well as clients and myself. And the way you think about this is almost, I don't know if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but really starting at the bottom of you really need that foundation to be able to kick off your well-being, and then you can build up to improve your well-being. So if you get to a point, maybe it's a really rough month or a really rough week and you feel like just drained and exhausted, I find going to the bottom of this pyramid and resetting and really thinking through each of these aspects and working your way up can help improve your well-being. So I know earlier when I asked what people are doing for their well-being, I know two of you shared, or someone mentioned water, right? Hydration. So that's definitely on that, lower level of foundational items. We need to make sure we're hydrated. And as simple as that sounds, and maybe silly, like our body needs water, our body needs nutrition. And if we're not giving it the correct nutrition and water, it will be really hard for our body to function. Someone else mentioned exercise. So movement is sort of the broader category I've put here at the bottom, but really getting our bodies moving. Research has shown now that because we are so digitally focused, some of us can tend to be sitting at our desks or sitting at, just sitting for a large part of the day. And sitting is the new smoking. It really is as harmful to our health now as smoking was decades ago. So really thinking about how to get out of our chairs, moving. And I know many of you, depending on your business, might already be doing a lot of moving, but really thinking about, if you're not moving, really, how do you incorporate movement into your everyday? And then sleep. And I know if you have kids, maybe you can see this, right? Like us as humans, when we get the right amount of sleep, we're so much better off to be able to handle our days. When we don't get enough sleep, we have brain fog. It's hard to focus. It's hard to make clear decisions. Our body is dragging. So really thinking about these elements at the bottom as core to our well-being. And if you're having a difficult week at work, really going back to these, saying, okay, how do I focus on my sleep, my movement, and my nutrition and water? And then after you're feeling good about those, working your way up in this pyramid, relationships. As humans, we are built to crave connection with other humans. And everyone, that might look different for each person, but some sort of connection to other human beings is really important to our well-being. So thinking about the relationships in your life and the connections to other humans, and how are you feeling about those connections, can help improve your well-being. And then gratefulness. It's really been proven, even just each day, noticing one thing that you are grateful for. It doesn't have to be big. It can be very small. Maybe it is clean drinking water, or maybe it is, today the sun is shining. But really thinking about those little things that we are grateful for can really help improve our well-being. And again, I know this, may sound silly, when we have all these other demands and priorities from a business perspective to keep our businesses going, but it is, how do we help build in these small habits to help improve our mindset and the way we approach each day, which then spills over into our work. And then this third layer I have in the pyramid is meaningful impact. And that's where I would say some of our work starts to come into play here. Back to, what we talked about earlier, our why. Sort of, why are we doing the work that we're doing? What's that impact that we want to make in the world? And really focusing on that, of like, okay, what's the impact? I want to treat people kindly. I want to take care of them. I want to offer them a product that they wouldn't have otherwise, or I want to solve a problem for them. What is that meaningful impact? And that can help our own well-being. And then as we move up in the pyramid, again, as you're like feeling good in these other areas of your life, your body is feeling rejuvenated, strong, comes some of the extras, which is more of that creativity. Maybe you're adding more in your hobbies and your passions, and then ultimately fun. And hopefully you can have fun throughout the whole pyramid, but I'd like to shape it this way, just based on, if you are going through a difficult time, really going back to the bottom, going back to asking yourself, okay, am I sleeping? Am I getting water? And then really working your way up as you think about your well-being. So what's one area, as you think about your own well-being, what's one area that you feel like you're struggling with right now?
Sleep. Enough of it.
Yeah.
Or just restful sleep. Like, yeah.
Sleep's a
All
big
right.
one.
I'll share too. Mine is probably sleep. Rescue for cat and kitten. And so we foster cat here and kitten, and we've been talking about how that has taken up so much of our time. It's something that we enjoy, but it takes up so much of our time, and taking care of them, is even harder in some aspects than taking care of kids, because these cats can't do anything for themselves. So we're up till incredibly late, and she's a nurse and has to be up sometimes by 5 o'clock. And so we see the sleep part definitely affecting everything else, our moods, our ability to get up and do stuff, and so that's a big thing for us. And Jenny and I laugh about that all the time. She'll ask me, how much sleep did you get this weekend or whatever, because she knows how busy we are with that. But then the work we're doing with the cats is very meaningful to us, but it's still, we got to figure out how to balance that out more.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're really aware of that, right? Which is helpful of like, okay,
Mhm.
well, this, it's so important to you. Like you said, taking care of these cats really brings that meaningful impact. So it is important. Yet right now, the sleep bucket is suffering. So what steps can you take to improve the sleep? Or if it is that acknowledgement of, you
Mhm.
know what? And sometimes I find it can be helpful to label like, okay, for the next 2 months, I'm not going to get a lot of sleep. And if it
Yeah.
is just like, this is the period that we are in, we want to take care of these cats, and I don't know what the time frame is. I just threw 2 months out there, but if you're like, okay, the next 2 months are going to be hard, like, how can we know that? Because sometimes if, as humans, if we just know that and we label it and we say, okay, I'm not going to get a lot of sleep, that can at least help us improve our well-being of saying, okay, what
Mhm.
else can I do? Or in 2 months, I can focus on that, but for right now, I'm going to focus on other things because other things are important right now. That's a great example. And so as you think about your well-being, I just want to always encourage everyone to keep picturing that person that you want to be. So I know both of you mentioned sleep. So really thinking about, okay, like, I want to be a person that can create a great sleep routine, or that can get, quality sleep. I know for me, it was, I wanted to be the person that got up at 6 a.m. and worked out. It took a very long time, but that commitment to saying, this is important to me, I want to build in this habit and build in this routine, really helped get me there. So picturing that person you want to be, it can really help as we work towards making changes to improve our well-being. So then we can be, focused on our well-being, but curveballs come, right? The well-being, I think that pyramid is sort of that zoomed out view of like, what are we doing to care for ourselves generally? But then we know that every day certain things, stresses come up. I'm sure as each of you running your businesses, look at your long to-do list, right? Like, okay, here's the like 30,000 things I could be doing. So here I wanted to share 4 ideas for managing your stress. So managing your day to day as business owners to help make it a little bit smoother. So first and foremost, I know we've been talking about this and said it a couple times, but prioritizing. So writing down your top 3 priorities for the day. So taking that long list you have and really saying, okay, today it's Wednesday, July 3rd. What are my top 3 priorities? If I want to get to the end of today and feel proud of what I needed to get done, what are those 3 things? And maybe it's one, right? Maybe it's one thing, but really, taking it from this long list and really creating that narrowed focus. And then I'm sure some of you may have heard the phrase, eat the frog first. So do that most important thing first of, okay, if it is, I really don't want to update my, financial numbers. That spreadsheet is dragging me down. But if you can get that done first and be like, whew, okay, that's out of the way, it's done, now I can move on. That can definitely help create some positive momentum. The second thing to help manage your stress is focus on getting things done. I know as business owners and entrepreneurs, sometimes we can focus on perfectionism or wanting it to be, a certain way. But I found, and, always hear from a lot of people that that can slow us down. And sometimes we then don't even get the thing done. So instead of trying to make it perfect or instead of procrastinating, focus on getting things done. Obviously, Nike has the phrase, just do it. And I know that can feel hard. So the trick I like to help people with is setting a timer. So just say, okay, if I'm going to update my Excel spreadsheet with all my finances right now, I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. And for the next 10 minutes, focus on updating this spreadsheet. Then that at least creates, again, sort of that momentum of, okay, I did it. It wasn't too bad. And at least you made 10 minutes of progress towards that thing that felt difficult. So drop that perfectionism, drop the procrastination, and just get it done. A third tool towards managing stress would be to stop self-sabotaging. So each of us might get in our own way. And this part is going to be very personal about how we get in our own way, but recognizing that pattern can be really helpful. So for me, for example, switching from my corporate role to my entrepreneur life, it really was perfectionism. Like I wanted, everything about my business to be a certain way, and really needing to just notice like that was a pattern that was holding me back and preventing me from growing and preventing me from taking those next steps. So once I was able to label it and just say, okay, that's perfectionist Jen coming out again. Like she is showing herself strong right now. Then I can say, thank you, perfectionist Jen. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you are not helping me right now. And almost talking to our, I know that might sound strange, but talking to that part of us and just being like, okay, like you're not going to help me right now. Right now, I need to, send my newsletter, and perfectionist Jen is preventing me from sending it. So really thinking about for yourself, what pattern might be holding you back and how you can help move past it. And then the fourth step or advice I can give about managing stress would be, I like to call it riding the wave. So again, we know that things may come up. We may have our plan. We talked about our priorities for the day. I'm going to go update the spreadsheet, right? And in the middle of your 10-minute timer, you get a urgent customer coming in that needs something. So it might throw you off completely, right? And depending on, maybe you didn't get enough sleep, right? So you didn't get enough sleep. You were finally prioritizing. You were working on something you didn't want to be doing anyway. You're probably like not in the best state of mind. So really trying to use different breaks throughout your day to recharge so that you can stay flexible in that moment and you can ride the wave, right? Of like whatever's coming at you. So different techniques, or one of the examples that I like to use is a mental fitness break. And one example that I'll share with you is just rubbing your two fingers together. So if you take your thumb and your forefinger and just start to slow down and rub it together so slowly. And you'll see for me, it already starts to make me just take a big deep breath because I've done this for so long. And feel the ridges on your fingers. And just rubbing your two fingers together. It really helps get us out of our heads, right? So when we're in that flight or fright moment where we're like, oh, the customer's coming at me. I didn't sleep well. I was trying to get this other thing done. You get very into your brain. And what we want to do is get you back into your body and back into feeling more grounded. So you can feel confident, you can feel clear-headed to be able to respond to the customer rather than reacting. So little tricks are throughout the day, taking breaks. And again, this is one example of rubbing your two fingers together. Another example that can be helpful, I know a lot of my clients like, is scrunching your toes in your shoes. And again, all of this, if you're on a screen, no one can see you. So if you're meeting with a partner on the screen, no one can tell. Or let's say you're in a store behind a counter, no one can see as you're like scrunching your toes in your shoes. And just that act of, again, feeling your body, it helps bring some of the stress hormones away from your head down and really getting the blood flowing throughout your body. So hopefully some of these tips can help as you think about managing your stress throughout the day. Is there one of these that you can picture like, yeah, this could be really helpful, and how you would apply it to your day?
I think the self-sabotage is definitely a big one for me because I'll always like try to be doing something and then start staring at my phone, get on Instagram or something. And I know that I do that and I shouldn't, but I do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I'm wondering, like, what name could you give that? Is that like your social media? I don't know. Yeah, if you give it a name, like your social media bug, like, oh, now I'm getting distracted by social media.
Yeah, I guess just my procrastinating Lee. Let me find something else to do that distracts me from what I actually need to do.
Yeah. And that can be so helpful. So if it's procrastinatingly, and then this way, yeah, if you like name that in this way, like, yeah, here's my phone, right? Like next time you go to pick up your phone and scroll social media or look online, you can be like, nope, Lee, that's procrastinatingly, right? And just not right now. Right now, I need to get some work done. And I think sometimes, again, labeling it, like reminding ourselves like that's not helpful, can really help. And then for certain things like your phone, there's different boundaries you can create, right? Like different settings of, okay, put it in do not disturb or put it in airplane mode, or, different technical settings that we can set on our phone or sometimes on our computers. I know sometimes clients will say, oh, people will keep emailing me, or, so if you're trying to focus on updating that Excel spreadsheet, maybe you close out your email inbox so you don't get distracted. So I think it is really figuring out whatever it is. And so Lee, thank you for sharing that example of procrastinating Lee and how that's getting in your way, because naming it can help us move past it. Okay. So now here are some questions to help for a mid-year check-in. I'm not going to read all of these. We won't go through all of them right now, but hopefully this can be a helpful tool after this call as you think about, okay, we're here, it's beginning of July. Let's spend some time reflecting. And I know this can feel like time we don't have, right, to reflect on our goals, but this is so important to just pause. And I would say make sure if you don't already have a practice of this, building some time into your calendar to spend thinking about your business, where you are now from the first half of the year and where you want to go the rest of the year. So I would love to hear, and again, we won't go through all of these, but if you think about what was your most meaningful accomplishment? I know some of us can not want to celebrate or not focus on the good. Maybe we're just focused on, all these other things they have to do or need to do better. But I'd love to celebrate some successes. So who wants to share a meaningful accomplishment from the year?
I'll share. It's more personal. So my New Year's resolution was to get my arm back in shape. Mm-hmm. As somebody past the 45-year age, and I didn't do anything like most people that make a New Year's resolution. I didn't do anything that was really tangible to start that. So 2 weeks ago, I've just begun basic push-ups in the morning every day, and so I'm celebrating that. Having done it for 2 weeks now. So it's minor, but it definitely affects your psyche, and it's exciting because I felt a little bit stronger already. So I just wish I'd done it starting in January. So.
But that's okay, Jenny. Thank you for sharing. You started that journey, right? And like you said, like you wish you would start it earlier, but like don't worry about that. You did start. And I know you said it's a small thing, but even those small things, like, okay, let me do just a couple push-ups every day. Like there's such power in creating small habits that we do consistently over time. So that will have such a big impact. Like if you keep doing that for the rest of the year, right? By the end of the year, like those arms, you are going to like be super strong, right? And reflect back on the year and feel like so proud of that work that you did. So I think for each of us, it is, okay, what's that small step we can take towards that goal that we're working on? And I'll share it. It's on the last page, but one of the books I love is Atomic Habits. And it really, the author talks about that, of like, how do we create these habits that help us towards our goals? Who else wants to share a success for the first half of the year?
I'll share something, and I think Jeremy had to hop off, but I'll give him credit. It was more of a personal thing. So my oldest daughter started playing volleyball about a year and a half ago, 2 years almost, and there was an opportunity. They needed coaches at her club, and I grew up playing volleyball. It was my favorite sport. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't have the time. Like, it was just like that sort of pressure was like how, and I ended up saying yes. And it's been one of the best experiences we've been able to have together. It's gotten me back into like the gym and playing, and I'm noticing it's like affecting other habits in my life in positive ways. And yeah, it is like, a time constraint thing, but it's also been like she actually looks forward to having me. She's like, "Are you coaching again next year? Are you gonna be like?" So it's been a great like relationship building thing for me and her, and also something that's like reconnected me to something I used to love like growing up. So, yeah.
That's so fun. And Kate, as you were talking, I was just picturing this pyramid, right? Like this it creates movement as you're
Yeah.
like playing, relationships. It sounds like you bonded with your daughter and some of her friends.
Mhm.
Meaningful impact. You're impacting these girls' lives as you teach them and coach them. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun and can bring in
Yeah.
some creativity. So, like you said, yes, it takes more time, but it's helping really like fill your bucket, right? And like improve your well-being, as it includes so many of these different areas. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So we'll send this out so that you can have these questions and all the other tools afterwards. But hopefully, as you think about this mid-year check-in point, there's things we want to celebrate, and there might be things that we want to change. Just how Jenny said, there was a moment or a day that she said, I haven't done anything yet towards this goal. I want to start working on my arms. So for each of us, there may be something like that in our business or personal life that we're like, okay, you know what? Like, ooh, I haven't done it yet. So what do I want to start doing the rest of the year? And what I'm sharing is here is a framework that might help. So as we think about making changes in our lives, I know sometimes change can feel really hard, right? Like, and Jenny, I hope you don't mind me using your example, but like working on your arms, like that might feel really hard and not want to get started. So for each of us, thinking about something that we want to change and thinking about your why. So, okay, like again, back to the why. Why is this an important change? And then thinking about our foundation. So I think 3 things that can help us with a change is our strengths. So like what about us are we already strong in that can help us achieve the change? Our values, so what's important to us. Our self-sabotage, so again, how might we get in our own way? So once we understand some of these foundational aspects, we can then think more about, okay, how do we really make this change happen? And I like to use this framework of start, stop, and continue. So really thinking about, okay, well, what do I need to start doing to make this change happen? What do I need to stop doing? And what do I need to continue doing? Like Lee, I know earlier you shared, maybe the phone is a distraction and you're procrastinating. So perhaps something on the stop column would be, stop getting on my phone. The example I'm sharing here was improving bedtime. So I know earlier we talked about for a lot of us how sleep is so important. So thinking about, okay, if I wanted to improve my bedtime, what are some steps I could do? And so when and this is a real life example for myself last year. So really it's important to me because it takes a long time to fall asleep and I don't feel rested in the morning. So thinking about my foundation, I'm organized, I can create plans, I can be detailed, my values, my health is important to me, and I want to be able to make an impact in the world. And I know I can't do that if I'm tired. And how I sabotage myself, I'm a avoider and a perfectionist. So if I'm not doing a bedtime routine just perfectly, I might, get mad at myself. So knowing all of this about me, I can then create a plan to start, stop, and continue as I can improve my bedtime. So for example, you'll see here, like for starting, I wrote down the parts of the routine. I was going to follow the routine. And then I told my family about the routine. So that's my accountability partner. So everyone knew like, oh, mom, it's 9 o'clock. Like you got to go start your routine. And my husband can stop asking me if I want to watch TV at 9:45 because he knows the answer is going to be no. It's not part of my bedtime routine. But things I needed to do, so now in the stop column was watching TV or stop scrolling on social media and stop looking at my phone is the last thing I do. And then things I wanted to continue doing were meditating, flossing, writing in my journal. So this framework, and hopefully that, this will be a blank piece of paper or digital format when we send it to you. You can use this if there's changes that you want to incorporate. I know we're getting towards time, and I want to make sure we include time for any questions and answers. So I'll work towards wrapping up. Does anyone have questions, though, about this framework for making a change in your life? No? Okay. And then just tools for support. So as we've been talking about our well-being and our business goals and making changes, some ways that can help us really create the change and make it last is schedule it. So when will you do it? Like for Jenny, I don't know if you do the push-ups like first thing in the morning or if it's another part of the day. Do you want to share?
First thing in the morning. Otherwise, it won't happen.
There you go.
Or they'll be sloppy.
Yeah. And I think so it's figuring out, right? For each of us and what the thing is that we want to change, figuring out the time when you're going to do it. So for Jenny, it was like, all right, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do my push-ups. So figuring out, if for each of us, let's say it's whatever it is, putting it on your calendar and planning for it. So telling someone. So again, like me with my bedtime, it was telling my husband, you know what, I'm really focusing on my sleep. At 9 o'clock, I'm going to start shutting down and start my bedtime routine. Telling someone or a coworker can help us create the change. And then trying to make it as easy as possible. So are there any things around the change that will help? So for example, if you want to go to the gym first thing in the morning, this helped me when I was creating my change to work out at 6 a.m. I put my gym clothes out the night before and I put them in the hallway. This way I'm not going to wake up my husband, I'm not going to fumble, looking for the right clothes. They're in the hallway. I know when I wake up the next morning, they'll be there ready. So that made it easier so that when I want to get up and work out, it feels a little bit easier. So just all those little steps that can help make a change easier. And then finally, self-compassion. So for all of these things, whether it's running our businesses or making changes, reminding yourself you're doing the best you can. And each day is a chance to do something different if you want. But for today, you were doing the best you can. So I know that can be really helpful. So today we talked about work-life balance, the well-being pyramid, managing stress, some questions for your mid-year check-in, and making a change. So hopefully some helpful tips. And I don't know if there's any questions. People, do you want to dive into questions now, Kate?
Let's do it. Anybody got any questions? This was great, Jen. Very simple, very elegant. Great reminders. So I really enjoyed it. What questions do you guys have?
So I don't have a question, but I agree this was really good. Hopefully I can implement some of this stuff for the stress management and the pyramid and all that good stuff. So it's very helpful.
Good, thank you.
And something that I think that we can use, I think that we can use in our job to talk with our local directors. Because we always stress about the say and no part to them because again, everybody comes to the Main Street program wanting them to do everything. And so we talk about the say and no to them. But I think also, the stress management and there's a big focus, especially nationally, on the mental health of our local directors. And so I think a lot of these tools are things that we can use as we're talking with our local directors too, to help them have maybe a little bit less stress in their work day and life day.
Actually, for the group that's still on with us, this might be an interesting question for Jen because they're in a unique role similar to how you are, and they're trying to affect positive change, right, in their networks and communities. So maybe are there any other tips or suggestions you might give to those that are, kind of sitting more in that organizer, community builder, change trying to affect positive change, trying to influence innovation, new ways of doing business and their positions. Is there any other things you might layer on top of this, from that perspective?
Yeah, I would say when it's, because some of this that we've been talking about, you're right, is maybe more like personal change or
Mhm.
like more changes you want to make for yourself. When it comes to organizational change, I would say definitely thinking about the system, right? When you have more people that are connected to a change, like in an organization or lots more stakeholders, right? People that are affected. I think thinking about, I mean, the why doesn't change, right? Like, why is this change so important? And really helping make sure people understand that why. I know sometimes if you're trying to make a change or get people on board, if they don't understand why they should go along with this change, that might be really hard for them to want to go along with it. So I think helping make sure that the change and the reason for the change is communicated is always really important, and maybe communicating it in a couple different ways. I know when making changes in organizations, maybe is it an email? Is it a webinar? Is it an in-person Q&A, right? Like, what are all the different methods of communicating the change so that it can really sink in? Like, even if you think it's clear, like each of us come from a different perspective and each of us come with a different set of knowledge. So helping communicate it in a couple of different ways. And then I would say another tip for organizational change is what's in it for them. So really thinking about, okay, like, well, why would they want to get on board with this change? So even if they understand it, like why would it benefit them? Would it, like, why would they want to go along with it? And trying to help them understand that. Um, and I would say probably a third thing, if it's possible, if they're able to give input towards the change. So people feel good when they're able to contribute, right? And give their perspective. And even if maybe they can't influence the full outcome, if there are elements of hearing their feedback and hearing their concerns, that you can connect to the change. So those would probably be 3 tips I can think of off the top of my head.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have any questions or comments.
I like the mid-year check-in. That's a really good reminder. And I think that's what triggered my shift to say, wait a minute, I said I was going to do this and I've not done anything about it. And it was, June.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a really helpful reminder. I mean, I would even put it on my calendar as a mid-year check-in, just to poke a little bit and inquire, the status of the things that I committed to doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful.
Yeah. And I know Kate had asked me if I have resources to share. So here's some graphics of some different resources, but one you'll see in the center is called the Best Self Planner. So Best Self is a company. And I used to use, they had like a daily planner I used to use, but now I use this one called Planner. Pretty generic name, but I love it. It helps me as I think about my goals and my daily priorities. Like, there is a section at the top for like 3 things. So that's where I was like, oh, like that really helped me be like, all right, what 3 things do I want to focus on for today? And then it does have every quarter, like a quarterly check-in. So back to our goals, and you can write in it your goals for the, quarter, or, this particular planner is in 6-month increments. So you use it for 6 months and then you can get another one. But I found that really helpful. So Jenny, to your point, because then I'm like, oh, my goals are there. It's prompting me, it's reminding me, let me check in on my goals and how I'm doing. And then I can use it not only on the quarterly and monthly basis, but then on a weekly basis and daily to think about my priorities. And then since I'm here, I can share some of the other, so these are some books I like. The 4 books on the left: Atomic Habits, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff, I think is really helpful for entrepreneurs. And then Adam Grant's Think Again. And then I like to share this picture of water with lemon, because I think that, again, at the end of the day, when you focus on your well-being, if you're going through a really tough period, like, start really small, really simple. Like, for me, it was like, I am going to drink a glass of water with lemon every morning when I wake up. And that was my like fresh start each day. Like no matter what happened yesterday, maybe I didn't get things done, maybe it was a really difficult day, but today water with lemon, and just again, that fresh reset. And then I put nature in this picture, my two daughters and us out hiking in nature. That for me is always really restorative. So thinking about what restores you. And then a screenshot of the Positive Intelligence, which is a company I'm certified in their program on mental fitness. And so some of those techniques to help get out of our head and into our body is from that company.
Amazing. I love the planner.
I love it. I know.
Great. All right, everybody. Well, we are just about time. We have a couple minutes if there's any final thoughts or questions for Jen. Now's the time. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jen. It's been wonderful having you on with the group, and I look forward to sending out the recording as well as your slides with all the resources and tips and the template for creating change in your own life. So thank you for being with us today. It's been a treat.
Thank you for having me. And with the documents, Kate will be sharing my contact information. So if anyone has questions or wants to share your wins or what you're working on, just reach out. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next month. Happy 4th of July.
Happy
Same to
Fourth.
you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.